I show them the door. But that's a sure sign. I mean, it's very difficult to hire good people, and in China, and particularly in the large cities, and many of the menial jobs in the large cities in Shanghai or Beijing are now being shipped out to the West, where the labor costs are cheaper, because it's quite expensive to hire folks in Shanghai and Beijing now. So I think that's a definite sign of hiring bubble going on. On the issue of pace and valuation, I think Kevin's observation is absolutely correct. I think you saw a rush of venture capital dollars pouring into China, and I alluded to a little bit earlier that the mid stage there's a bubble. In terms of the pace is crazy really because, again, as Kevin alluded earlier, every idea has probably 10 companies. The last count we made, there was 180 YouTube-like companies in China. 180. Okay? Now, at the height of the U.S. bubble, there was 120 optical switch companies. So I kind of beat that number by a little bit. And hence, the pace is crazy because every VC thinks that the one that they found could be the winner, and obviously because of all the money pouring in, the valuations going up. Now, having said that, will the award of picking the right one outweigh the risk? I think the answer is yes, but I think the art of figuring who would be the winner is extremely difficult today, particularly for a lot of deals in China where so many companies, I'd say about 80% are at the end of the day Me Too companies. There's about 20% that are innovative technology companies. They tend to be more in the semiconductor space in terms of the innovative side. But outside of that area and maybe some bio area, that all the rest is really a lot of Me Too's. And from the American perspective, it may not look like Me Too's sometimes because, it's some, next generation mobile value-added services that, you don't see in the U.S. And so from an American perspective, you say, well, that doesn't sound like a Me Too to me. But if you look at Asia as a whole, what they're doing is basically copying a new service that came out in Korea 6 months ago or from Japan a year ago. So, I still put them in the Me Too category. I would say the one sector that really is completely overblown in China so far is really the Web 2.0 craze. I think in the U.S., the advertising market is large enough to, if you find a really hot, YouTube is a great example. With a lot of traffic, you can always generate dollars because the advertising market is. I think it's like 40 or 50 billion today in the U.S. Now in China, it's $600 million large in 2006. That's the total advertising market on the internet. Now there are 7 portals fighting for that 600 million, and they're all relatively equal in size today. You take a NetEase, Sinus, Sohu, and even Baidu. The revenues they're kind of neck to neck, and if you add them all up. And divide that by, and they take about 80% of the market. And so you only have $150 million left on the table for probably, 700 decent internet companies with an advertising model. So you figure, it's sustainable? The sophistication level of the advertisers is so low. I mean, I was with one of our entrepreneurs, and we were doing an advertising sale for one of our companies to Southern China Airlines. It's a big one of the bigger airline companies in China. And all the guy wants is, he just wants to show his boss that on the home page that there's a Southern China banner. And he says he doesn't care about CPMs or any other metric. That's all he cares about. So he goes, and I don't know if you've ever seen a Chinese website, but the home page is like a landmine.
Yeah.
Okay?
An exploded landmine.
Yeah, and it looks like Las Vegas. It looks like you're driving down the strip, because the entire page is just little blocks of banner ads, because every advertiser, all they care about is they just want that a home page spot. That's the sophistication. So any other kind of advertising model companies, and particularly with Web 2.0, that's what they're based on, it's going to be years before they really make any kind of real money. And I think there lies in the fallacy. Everyone's copying the YouTubes and the Web 2.0s of the U.S. model, but it's still going to take a long, long time in China. And I think that's where the biggest bubble is today in China, and I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed.
Sounds like China could use the guy, the kid that made money here by selling individual pixels on a screen.
Yes.
Shut them off, right? So, Pramod, what's your experience?
Yeah, I think in some ways similar and in some ways dissimilar. I think the issue becomes, as is true here in the U.S. as well, there is a lot of money in the system. There's a lot of companies that get started. David talked about 120 optical switch companies, 10 years ago or 7 years ago. So I think the trick, and you see some of that in India as well, certain sectors get overfunded or certain subcategories get overfunded. There's a lot of money in the system. Now, a lot of it is dumb money, and I say that, with a certain amount of respect. But, you've got hedge funds coming in. You've got hedge funds coming in and funding companies. You've got private equity funds sometimes dipping into...
Are there any hedge fund guys in this room?
Yeah. You've got a lot of people that are not familiar with early-stage investing, putting money in because, it sounds so glamorous and so on. And then you've got a lot of entrepreneurs that really have not had any mentorship in entrepreneurship before. So, our model, frankly, is to be extremely selective. We back, to be honest with you, we only back entrepreneurs that are attorneys, that have been here before in the U.S., that have seen how venture capital works and how it should be used, and the value that venture capitalists should bring and can bring if they're used properly as mentors and as value add in a lot of areas. So, we're very careful about that. We shy away somewhat from early-stage investing. We picked some very good late-stage investments because, you have the advantage of avoiding all this clutter. So I think you have to be very disciplined. You have to be very selective. You've got to look at the track record of the entrepreneurs. You've got to look at their upbringing, their pedigree, their role models that they've had in the past. As I said, we typically don't invest in someone that is not a returnee and someone that really hasn't worked, in some kind of a startup before over here in the U.S. or in Europe and so on. So I think you have to be selective. I believe that, there's a tremendous opportunity in the mid to late stage market in India. Not to say that there aren't opportunities in the early stage, but like I said, you have to be very selective. But there are far more opportunities in the mid to late stage markets and across a variety of different sectors, not just hardcore IT. There's a lot of services companies of various kind. There's also a lot of component companies and so on in different sectors. There's a lot starting to happen in the pharma sector. And so, there are some very interesting opportunities. You just have to be very selective, disciplined, and you got to make sure that, the same discipline that you use here, you bring in to selection process over there. Having said that, yes, like any other place, there's a lot of money chasing a lot of deals. It's true here in the Valley as well. Lots of Me Too companies, and you just have to be very selective.
So, without putting you completely on the, against the wall to answer the question about whether we're at the sort of eve of a bust here.